Picasso showing on my left, $58 million.
You may have noticed how fickle the art world can be. It celebrates the Caribbean culture-inspired work of a Wilfredo Lam, while failing to honor the Africa-inspired output of a Georgia Brinadingra. It hails a Diego Rivera, but leaves behind a Marion Greenwood. It pays millions for a Soutine, but nowhere close to that for his art school roommate, Phinhus Kремень. It's 1912 in what is now Belarus, and every aspiring artist in Europe knows the place to be is Paris. But the Russian Empire refuses passports to its Jewish population. So Kремень is forced to hire a smuggler to get out of Russia and has to ride fourth class in a train across Germany, into France, and finally arrives in Paris with 4 rubles in his pocket. Now, his chums back in art school told him the place to point toward when you arrive in Paris is an artist colony called La Ruche, where he will find many other fellow Russian speakers. At Kremegn's urging, Chaim Soutine joins him a year later in 1913. Now, for most of us, Expressionism is politely an acquired taste, but it's the time and the place and the stories that most fascinate. Over the next 6 years, Kремень will be joined by an impressive list of future art superstars, all in this moment struggling to find an audience and all virtually penniless. Collectively, a lot of these expressionists will go on to be known as the Paris School, including Kремень. Right away, he sets about synthesizing the styles he admires most, those of Cézanne, Van Gogh, and especially the Fauvists, led by Matisse. You know that means we're going to see a lot of raging color. 4 years. 4 years go by before he finds his first patron. And 2 years later, in 1918, a second underwrites his trip to Surette, France. He will fall in love with that village, return there periodically over the years, and eventually move there permanently in 1960. With his first exhibition in 1919, Phinhus Kремень has arrived. But in at least 2 biographical accounts, there are hints that at critical points along this path to fame, he's set back by bouts of depression. Still, a marriage and extensive travel in the 1920s suggest robust sales of his work. And then in 1940, the Nazis enter Paris. Everything changes. Being Jewish, he's forced to flee. He finds a village in central France called Touraine, and a farmer there kindly allows him to hide out as a field hand for 4 years. But there is a gallery in Toulouse that lets him have oil paints, and he still produces work during the war years. The Kремень that returns to Paris after the war suffers from what we'd call today PTSD. He's productive, but reclusive, and never quite regains the momentum of the pre-war years. One account suggests that by the late 1950s, he's almost forgotten. But then, major exhibitions are mounted in London and Philadelphia, and a prominent art gallery right there in Paris. Shortly thereafter, 1960, he moves permanently to Surette. Though considered every bit as worthy of fame as housemates Soutine, Modigliani, and Chagall in the 1920s. These days, Phinhus Kремень remains one of the last ways an average person can afford to buy into the golden age of the Paris School. Ironically, the country that drove him away with ceaseless anti-Jewish pogroms today embraces him as a homegrown genius. Maybe one day, the rest of that fickle art world will agree.